Hey everybody, Edo here, and this week I have some questions. I want some opinions. I don't know if I'm going to give this segment another name or a new title, but coming out of the Sweet Mess, which had to do with the Kickstarter campaign that was a creator who had multiple campaigns and wrote this really big update. There's been all of these little interesting fallouts, and one of which I really want to get opinions on, and I've been thinking about. So I did the video on the Sweet Mess, which was like an overview of what was happening and some different things that were coming out of it. I'll link it below. Certainly check it out. And then we also ended up I did a discussion with AJ about unit economics. I'll link that as well, but that was interesting. But in, perhaps both, but in the comments on the Sweet Mess video, there's lots of discussions, lots of how terrible the creator was, like all this sorts of stuff. But like one thing that came up multiple times that I thought was really interesting was backers who saw the video and were commenting, who really felt strongly, and you can go find the comments in there, but really felt strongly that content creators were partially to blame for the situation. In essence, these people who are doing paid previews, paid content, are knowingly promoting and talking about this Kickstarter game, even though the Kickstarter creator has outstanding products and outstanding situations. Like they should not be using their media platform to promote projects by people who are behind on campaigns or otherwise have some sort of faulty background or likelihood of not fulfilling that, by legitimizing and providing the platform for these videos, some of which are free, most of which are paid in this case, but not all of them. They're participating in the fraud. Right? I think that's a really aggressive way to say it, but that's the emotional sentiment, that these content creators, paid or otherwise, are creating videos that are selling the idea that this is real, it's a great game, where they knowingly are aware that the person failed to fulfill other Kickstarters and are misleading the public or misleading Kickstarter backers. I think that's a really interesting question. Not that I'm saying I necessarily agree with the entire sentiment, but for a couple of reasons. One, the idea that as a content creator, which I am, but other folks are, that you spend any time vetting the people you work with is an interesting one, right? Like when I get people sending me Kickstarters in content, I mean, some folks I know because I've done videos for older games of theirs, but they'll say, hey, I've got this Kickstarter coming up, you want to check it out? And I say, sure. I only ask a few questions. I say, I want to see pictures of the game. Let me see the rules. When can you get it from me? When would you need it by? And I look at the rules, see if I think I will enjoy the game, and if the time frame works, I'll do the review, and I do them for free, right? But I don't do any research on the individual or their previous campaigns or anything. Like, I don't. I just say, sure, throw it in. Now, I went to the Sweet Mess Kickstarter campaign just to look at who they were talking about and see how it was presented. And first off, I forgot how amazing that campaign page is. People talk to me and ask me all the time about how to do good Kickstarter campaigns, really compelling product, really good-looking content. That page is amazing. Talk about giving people the impression that you know what you're doing. That page, it's amazing. It's so well done. I know it's failed. I know all this stuff is happening. I still want to back it because of how amazing that campaign is. Right now. But going through it, quote from the Dice Tower, part of their crowd surfing video from Tom Vassell. Tantrum House does a review. Board Game Spotlight does a playthrough. Game Boy Geek does a review. Be Bold Games does how to play. Rahdo runs through it. Man vs. Meeple. BGG at Gamma 2018. Zatu Games and a number of others. But when that top list, that's the list of the big players. I mean, it's not all of them are equal, but in terms of their scale. But that's a serious list. And I can't, there's no way to know if they were aware of the previous failed campaigns. I know some people are like, well, they did a video for his old game. Well, okay, but like that doesn't mean they know that it shipped or didn't ship or had an issue. Like I think there's this gap between what a content creator knows and what they, what they know and what they're actually like know in the moment, right? Or aware of. But it was striking. It was so striking that I think there's a there, right? Like this idea, like as a content creator, should you be thinking about, I'm putting my brand, my name, my thing on this content that's being put on this Kickstarter campaign. Do I know that this person is set up for success? Do I know that they can win? Am I suggesting or promoting or getting people to be interested in something that might not exist and in some cases might be from a fraudulent person? Or in this case, let's say the sweet mess comes through or doesn't come through, but to do another one, would that then need to, like, if everything got resolved, every backers got their stuff eventually, and Big Kid Games did another campaign, could you do that video? Should you say, and hey, there was the sweet mess, but this thing's, like, do you need to add the clause, right? I sometimes I've done a number of Kickstarter videos for Steve Finn of Dr. Finn's Games. And when I do, I mention, hey, I've made a bunch of games with Steve. I love Steve's stuff. That's why I have him sending it. But like we have a relationship. Like that I actively do, but I know that. I don't need new information. Obviously, like a different version of this is paid previews. Like if you've been paid for your content, should you announce it, right? And then what's interesting, and this is creator not creator, I know a number of these partners charge for their content. I can't say verifiably that in this case they do, but many times you go into the video. But on the Kickstarter page, this isn't specific to Sweet Mess, but it's not mentioned that this was a paid preview or this is content, right? That's not the video content creator's problem. But but does the content creator enforce it, right? Does the content creator say, hey, I saw you launched your campaign. I noticed your campaign page. You don't mention anywhere. You quote me, but you don't say it was a paid preview. Could you please add under my quote that you paid me for that? I don't think that happens very much. And there's this interesting social contract that's sort of unraveling a little bit in some of these places. So, like, and there's other examples of this in weird ways when it comes to what is I don't want to say social responsibility because that, it's a little, not loaded, but has a lot of connotations. But this is more like responsibility to your viewers. What are your responsibilities to your viewers? What are your responsibilities to the backers of potential campaigns? And how do you think of this in terms of your content, the content that are on these Kickstarter pages, what jobs you're accepting is, to me, I think, interesting. I think many content creators, the reaction is, because in some ways it was my first reaction too. It's like, it has nothing to do with any of that. All I'm doing is I'm getting a game, I'm looking at the game, and I'm giving you my feedback. I mean, there's different, but like, it's why should I be expected to pay attention to all of the stuff surrounding this game? I don't know. Somebody put it in front of me. I played it. I'm providing information that is become available to people to consume, and they'll consume it, and that's what I'm like by definition, I'm supposed to just objectively play. I'm not supposed to know about the person, what their background is, what this is about, what the campaign like. Anymore, if I know that stuff, am I really being objective in playing this game, or are those contributing factors? I know Tom Vassell with the Dice Tower used to get a lot of heat if people thought he knew the publishers and he played it, and he'd just be like, I'm just playing the game. It doesn't matter that I know that person. But at the same time, I don't necessarily believe in that. Like, to say whether or not you know who gives you something influences your content to some degree is like whether or not the price of the game influences your content, or whether or not the unboxing experience influences your content. It's like these are all outside factors that influence you and add to the picture. Some people might be better at putting their blinders up, but there's something there. So to me, it was a really interesting question. I don't know the answer exactly on how to approach it and what makes the most sense. Or, because on a Kickstarter, I guess the difference here, like if you review a movie and the movie's out, you're not like a Kickstarter, when somebody takes a quote of yours and puts it, and hey, I may have reviewed games that didn't ship or fulfill or were disasters. Like, I actually don't know. It might like somebody to be like, hey, Ed, what about these three? Like, it's possible. Because I've done a lot, I've done hundreds, right? But if my content is being put at the front of a campaign, it's effectively an advertisement. Like, even if I didn't by doing a preview and allowing it to be on the Kickstarter page, I'm knowingly contributed to this crowdsourcing thing with parties that may or may not be suitable to do that work, who are fraudulent or not. And perhaps that does warrant more thought, Like, this spreads into this sort of community responsibility or social responsibility, goes into some other avenues that have come up recently. Like another one, there's been a lot of discussion, I know Sue's had a Twitter thing, but on digital platforms and doing playthroughs or creating playthroughs on digital tabletop simulators or other things where you're scanning and you're taking content from a publisher and you're making you made a tabletop simulator game without their permission, and then you're making a video and you're showing it off, and there are all these different tracks on that. But if you're doing a playthrough and you go online and you are playing on a simulator and you're like, oh, I saw, this game was available on Tabletop Simulator. This game was available on Tabletopia, and I'm just playing a playthrough on my Twitch stream. As a creator, a content creator, as media, is it your responsibility to vet whether or not that was a legal copy or a approved version that you're now promoting and showing off? Should you do that every time? What's the expectation there? Because I think I would be surprised. I think most board game content creators, media creators, know that many of the versions of the games on Tabletopia, Tabletop Simulator, and other online digital platforms were not created by the publisher, and many of them without their permission. I think that's common knowledge. I would be surprised if somebody's like, what? I thought every work thing on Tabletopia or Tabletop was based on the publisher. So arguing the other side of the case, I would venture to say most content creators are aware there's a chance that the thing they're playing is, for lack of a better term, plagiarized or not licensed or whatever, right? If you're picking up a game on Tabletopia or whatever, there's a good chance this wasn't from the publisher, especially if the publisher didn't send it your way. So what do you do with that information? Do you just ignore it and be like, whatever, I'm playing? Or is part of your obligation to check it out? Oh, it's not attributed. Maybe I should contact the publisher to find out if this is real. How much legwork are you supposed to do? Or is the argument what are you kidding me? This content's available. The publisher isn't doing anything about it, whether or not they know about it, but this is a public forum. This is you can't stop me from streaming this thing on Twitch or I'm not. The problem isn't. It's you're going after the messenger. I'm not the problem. Your problem is with the person who did it. I'm just playing it on camera. Deal with it, right? There's very different perspectives, and it's interesting, right? It comes again to what amount of heads up knowledge, stuff do you have to prep in advance, and how much do you have to take that seriously? And what's your, it's not I don't know that there's a legal responsibility, but perhaps there is. But morals seems too hard of one. But how do you think about that? How are you thinking about your group? Different examples. I do a lot of Q&As. I do Q&As on interesting topics. Generally speaking, and I reach out, people recommend Q&As. I did a Kickstarter where I said, tell me who you want me to interview. over the years, I have had interviews with folks who subsequently, and I have reviewed games by people who have subsequently done some pretty crappy stuff, like some awful things, and in many of these cases, no one knew about it at the time the content was made. This came out after the fact. But, then your platform as a content creator, your subscribers, you've created a platform for this individual. You didn't know it at the time, but now you know that this is, what do? Do you take it down? Do you leave it up? There's some interesting there. Or say, for example, there's a lot of attention being paid to different designers. Like there's a couple of designers, and it seems like it's always happening, who, have said some awful things, shown some awful perspectives, whatever. Do you still review the game? A publisher has sent you a game that has a co-designer. Do you research the designers and the artists on the products that you're reviewing? It's a really interesting conundrum because, again, generally, if a publisher sends me a bunch of games, I just play them. I play them and review them. I'm not doing any deep dive on any of the individuals. And I'm just speaking for myself, but lots of people, different content creators might handle it differently, but I'd venture to guess that most aren't doing a deep dive. Certainly, if they're playing the game or they're reading the rule book and there's something offensive, sometimes I call that out, but to be like, oh, I looked up this artwork from this artist and I found out that they have this history of XYZ, may certainly be true, but how much of that is, it's what's the pundit, not pundits out there, what's the newsroom research responsibility and what's the reviewer responsibility, and where does that line blend, and what does it mean because most people do it as a hobby on a hobby on a hobby, and I have time to review a game. I don't have time to research every game I'm reviewing, right? And what are you comfortable with, right? So I think it's interesting. I feel like the answer is everyone's got to basically make up their own mind, and reviewers and media, you make up your mind, and backers and consumers make up their mind, and you see what happens. If a bunch of your fan base doesn't like what you did, you'll find out. I think there's a certain we're seeing a natural, not balance isn't the right word, but we're seeing cause and effect and reactions. But I think at a moment like this, it's worth stepping back. For example, for myself, putting this together, really thinking through, I'm not necessarily, I don't think I'm going to research every single person. However, starting the next person who shoots me an email asking me, starting today, the next one I get, and everyone following, when they say, hey, will you review my Kickstarter? Will you, all this stuff? I'm going to ask. Is this, have you done any other Kickstarters? Or do you have any other Kickstarters are open? Do you have any other Kickstarters that haven't funded, right? What, are you a new creator? What's your history? That isn't maybe as much as one might want. Again, I do this for free, but much is what you want. But to me, it's a question. And if somebody says, oh yeah, I have another campaign and we're in the process of fulfilling, I could make a judgment call. I could look. Now, again, they could just lie to me. And if I'm not searching down their pseudonym sub company, I'm never going to know. But I can say, hey, look, I asked, and they told me that, right? I think, I don't do that much Twitch streaming and Tabletopia streaming, so I can't speak to that much. And it has really been interesting thinking about the instances where, I can look back at somebody that has turned out to be a bad player and in a way I'm not I'm not comfortable with, and what does that mean, and how does that work, and I'll also say, for what it's worth, a lot of that comes out when people bring it up, right? You might know everything that not knows everything that's happening, but when a big audience gets upset about something, it's not uncommon to say why is suddenly I'm getting comments on this review from 4 years ago? What's going on? Oh, what's happening? Oh, right? So what are your thoughts, right? Content creators, backers, consumers. Like, what I really am curious about is, like, what's your perspective? Is it like, no, reviewers review, this is outside of the bounds of the contract of a reviewer looking at the game, and they shouldn't be thinking about any of this, and it might exist, it might not, but they shouldn't know. They should just play the game because we're looking for objective game playing. Or, no, there is a responsibility here and an awareness, and how should they handle it? How have you handled it? How would you like to see it handled? I don't know the answers to all this. I'm just watching it unfold, and it's curious to me. And obviously, it's, as a publisher, it matters. All of the above. You sometimes, as a publisher, you find out about content creators that have other types of content that might not be suitable to what you're comfortable with, and that's like a whole different version of this, right? So anyway, let me know your thoughts. I'm super curious. Thanks. Bye. Hey everybody, Edo here, and thanks for watching Gaming with Edo. Reviews over here on this playlist, League and Insider videos over here on this one. Subscribe, share, all that good stuff. But most importantly, play some great games. Thanks. Bye.